Talofa lava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suisuiki. Coming up,
I've decided after being in local government for a few years that maybe this could be my time to be Mayor of Hutt City.
Rugby League veteran Ken Laban runs for Lower Hutt Mayor. Also,
they kind of tend to have a laundry list of topics.
Micronesian summer begins in Majuro this week, and the US is set to implement a new tax. Sports commentator, former rugby league player and long-serving Wellington Regional Councillor Whaono Ken Laban has announced he's running for Mayor of Lower Hutt. The proud son of Samoan migrants, Whaono was also a former police officer and had been a sports commentator at Sky Sports since 2000. I caught up with Whaono to talk more about his mayoral campaign. Hey, talofa lava Whaono. First of all, the most obvious question, why have you decided to run for mayor?
Yeah, that's a very good question. These times, the trienniums that come up every 3 years, there are opportunities for people to make decisions who think they can influence change in a positive way. And I've decided after being in local government for a few years that maybe this could be my time to be Mayor of Hutt City.
Was politics always on the cards for you?
Not really. I thought I was actually going to be a career police officer. Ended up staying in the police from 1975 through to 91. Then worked in the community, essentially as a community organiser. And from there, time on the Hutt Valley District Health Board, the Hutt City Council, and then the Regional Council. So local body politics is something that I have been associated with for the last couple of decades.
So what are some of the things that urgently needs to be addressed in Lower Hutt?
Well, the same as it is everywhere. The people on fixed income, people who live in vulnerable situations, obviously we all care. There's a real sense of duty and humanity we have towards those in our community that need the most support. Our city in the Hutt is no different from any other city around New Zealand, and making sure we have plans in place to make that happen. At the other end of the scale, we need to make sure that we have a good environment in our commercial sector. We have entrepreneurs and businesses that are successful and confident and competent as well, because at the end of the day, they drive the economy and create the jobs and create the opportunities for us to live in a balanced society. So I'm really looking forward to being part of the debate at both ends of the spectrum.
Because you're the first Pasifika person to run for mayor in Lower Hutt, has there been some criticism from those who may feel that you can only serve Pasifika people?
Well, I suppose it doesn't matter what you do in public life. There are always going to be those who support and respect what you're trying to do, and there will always be those who don't. That's the beauty of democracy. As they say, I can't unring the bell. I am what I am, and I live the life that I've lived. And yes, I've been, obviously, when you're in the Pasifika community, you're there for life. So, whether or not that's a factor will be very interesting to see in the next few months.
Obviously, you've just launched your campaign, but have you been able to speak with locals in your area? And what are they saying?
It's been quite humbling, really, the encouragement and support that I've had. Originally, it wasn't on my to-do list, but people in the community have been coming to see me, not only in recent times but over the years. And after just completing nearly 4 terms on the Regional Council, the timing seems to me to be right to come back and serve my home city.
You mentioned that you've been in you've thought about throwing your hat in the ring for local body politics. What about national politics? Is that something that you can see yourself doing?
Well, not really. Probably if I was going to, I would have done it. Probably would have done it by now. There are a number of things I've been involved with over the years that have prevented that from happening anyway. But very excited to be part of the next mayoral campaign in Lower Hutt, and can't wait for the next 3 months.
While I have you with me, Whaono, what do you make of the Run It Straight events?
I think it's a dreadful event. It's not sport. I think the so-called courage and toughness that they try to sell the event on, I think is fake. We've already seen the tragic loss of life in Palmerston North, and the horrendous images I've seen coming out of Dubai with former Kiwi international and former Titans player Kevin Proctor are a stark reminder of why it's such a irresponsible, immature, I'm not even going to call it a sport because it's not an established sport. Those kind of contacts and those kind of tackles in rugby union and in rugby league were outlawed years ago. So, it's the equivalent of, giving a couple of people baseball bats and going out on, to strip a carpet and say, go for it. I just think it's a totally ridiculous, immature, and as I said, it's a fake attempt to replicate something that requires a great deal of courage, stamina, and fitness.
Would you ban it if they try to host it in Lower Hutt?
Oh yeah, yes, absolutely.
The leaders' meeting, part of the Micronesian Islands Summit, starts Wednesday in Majuro, with 2 days of lower-level meetings already taken place. Giff Johnson, editor of the Marshall Islands Journal, told Caleb Fotheringham leaders will be looking at how they can improve regional air transport.
So the Micronesian Islands Forum is a unique gathering because it not only includes the 5 independent Micronesian countries of Palau, the Federated States of Micronesia, Marshall Islands, Kiribati, and Nauru, but also the U.S. territory of Guam and the U.S. Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas. And in addition, it not only has the Federated States of Micronesia president, but governors from each of the 4 states are involved. So it's a very representative meeting of all the main islands in the Micronesia area.
And the Marshall Islands this year?
Yeah, this is being hosted in Majuro, and it's actually a 5-day event, but the first 2 days that we've just gone through, Monday and Tuesday, were official level meetings for preparation of documents and presentations and whatnot for the leaders meeting, which officially kicks off Wednesday with a ceremony and speeches and so on, and then they get right down to a lot of presentations and discussion on regional issues, which go Wednesday and Thursday, with Friday being reserved for a retreat for the leaders most of the day, and then the evening they'll do a community day and so on.
Do we know what the leaders' priorities are for the event?
These regional and sub-regional summits, they kind of tend to have a laundry list of topics, right? And this is the same for the Pacific Islands Forum. It's, for this Micronesian Islands Forum, it's quite similar in that, of course, they've got standing committees which meet, around, throughout the year and then come back with a presentation. So, they've got it's transportation. There's going to be a significant presentation about air transportation options, which is a really big issue for this part of the Pacific. And so they're trying to, see what sort of options they have to expand regional air transport. Then there's things like the Micronesia Challenge, which is a long-standing environmental program to conserve and protect a significant part of both ocean and land areas in the Micronesia region. Those are, the Pacific Ocean Commissioner, who's based in Palau. He'll give a talk. There's gender equality, then the SPC and SPREP and UN offices for this part of the Pacific. They've all got presentations. And, it's kind of the way this thing rolls. Now, I'd say that the aviation one is quite a significant thing because there's been a lot of work and discussion with Nauru Airlines about possibly expanding their island hopper service, which at the moment connects Brisbane with Nauru, Kiribati, Majuro, Pohnpei, and Palau, of possibly getting that connected into the Philippines and also to Honolulu. So that's something that's been a subject of much discussion over the past months and year. And so that's, I mean, I don't know if it'll go anywhere, but that's certainly an important topic. And even President Heine, who's hosting the event, in her comment to us the other day, said that she hoped that aviation, they'd see some progress on this aviation discussion.
The US is set to implement a tax on remittances paid by migrants to their families overseas. It's a key policy within US President Donald Trump's Big Beautiful Bill currently before the Senate. Pacific development experts say that impacts, both direct and indirect, pose a massive threat to the region. Kaya Selby spoke with Australia National University's Dr. Ryan Edwards.
It's a terrible policy. So I'm with the Development Policy Centre here, and remittances are one of the biggest and most important global financial flows to non-OECD and emerging and developing countries. Tremendously important in the Pacific, in sort of our neighbourhood. And when you think about taxing them going back, that's immediately a redistribution to the rich countries in the very first instance, but then it also leads to a whole heap of less than ideal unintended consequences, or at least that's what I would expect, and what the evidence suggests. In terms of where the US one will mostly hit, if you're talking in terms of the level numbers, places like Mexico, Guatemala, India, Philippines, China are all top ones in terms of the number of dollars, but then in terms of the relative importance for the countries themselves, it then tends to lean towards the smaller countries, as you would expect. And so on there, we do see some countries from the region, such as Marshall Islands and Samoa, being hit with a non-trivial share of their gross national income likely being reduced just by the direct effect of the tax deduction alone. But beyond the direct effect, I mean, the main thing that we would expect to see is, like, there's two things that a wonderful colleague here pointed out to me that are not so wonderful, that remittances can get sent in many ways. There's the cash ones, which is where this, I guess, will be targeted through formal channels, and then in-kind, and then less informal channels, and people often just carry it back in their suitcases and declare it or find other ways. And this will push everything to the informal channel market, which many countries have tried for a long time to try and move people away from, for security reasons and many reasons. So it's not a nice domestic policy that's compatible with being a good global citizen at all, really.
Mm. And even though the tax has been revised down originally from 5% to 3.5% and now to 1%, even still, I mean, we will still see quite a negative impact beyond just the direct implications, right?
I would expect it, and part of I guess the challenge is, I've been working on remittances for a little while now, and it used to be really costly for people to send money home and around the border, and this is like Australia and New Zealand obviously do have open labour market arrangements, and lots of money flows back and forward between the two countries. But the tech for sending money has fallen such that even in the most expensive corridors, sending remittances is a fair bit cheaper. But when we were looking at what the remaining gains that could be attained by switching to cheaper providers, even like a 1 or 2 percentage point or less than a percentage point change in the cost that you pay per transaction adds up both for the households and for the countries in huge ways. Like for Tonga, we found that a shift of a few percentage points was like a non-trivial part of their GDP. That would go back. And so, yeah, these small numbers have quite large multiplier effects, especially in larger countries. But it's also a part of there's a broader precedent concern that I guess makes me just a little bit more nervous. I mean, we've seen a lot of this with the current US administration on testing the waters with international trade and now aid and other things. But it wouldn't be a good habit for countries to get into for remittances, I don't think. Because they generally, I mean, the thing about, please redirect me towards other questions if you need, about migration and remittances is that most of the more interesting effects are not the ones that show up directly in a pure accounting sense. And so kind of, messing with distorting them in ways doesn't get me very excited. I think it's better to make it as sort of fluid as possible and as easy as possible.
The Tongan government continues to grapple with a cyber attack on its health ministry. The data breach happened on June 15th, and since then, hackers have published a sample of patient information they've obtained. Te Wila Fuatai reports.
Tongans are being warned to be extra vigilant about their online information as their government navigates a major data breach. A statement from the government, released on June 30th, outlines details of the cyber attack from 2 weeks earlier. It states that its health ministry has been the victim of a serious cyber crime where hackers have accessed systems and copied information. It also says a small amount of that information was published online on Friday and contained confidential information. Reports on the hack indicate the group Inc. Ransomware is claiming responsibility. Tongan cybersecurity expert Siosaya Vaipuna says these types of groups normally demand payment to return stolen data.
This cybercriminal group usually employ a double extortion tactic. So one would be encrypting the data and then demanding money to decrypt it so that the ministry can access the data. The other ransom is where they're demanding payment so that they don't release the information that they hold to the public or they sell it on to other cyber criminals.
Mr. Vaipuna is the former director of Tonga's cybersecurity agency, which is in charge of managing the current breach. He says during his 5-year tenure at the agency's helm, the attacks on various IT systems were relatively contained, whereas the current breach is significant. Tonga's health ministry is also warning more confidential information may be published online. It says its biggest concern is for vulnerable groups of people who will be most affected by information breaches. The government says it will be contacting these people directly. Mr. Vaipuna also says the Inc. ransomware group is known for targeting health organisations. Previously, it has focused on organisations in the US and Europe. However, Mr. Vaipuna says the Waifetu Medical Centre in Aotearoa has also been targeted. That attack happened on June 6th and reportedly included the theft of patient consent forms and education and training data. Unfortunately, he says Pacific nations are particularly vulnerable to these types of cyber attacks due to the lack of awareness and cybersecurity systems in the region.
I think this is a wake-up call that these cyber attacks are not just happening in movies or on the news somewhere else. They're actually happening right in our doorstep and impacting our people. And the right attention and resources should rightfully be allocated to the organisations and to teams that are tasked with dealing with cybersecurity matters.
Tonga's health ministry says it is working with experts from Australia's special cyber attack team to manage the hack. It is also warning people to be extra vigilant around their online activity. This includes changing passwords regularly, refraining from clicking on unknown links, and reporting suspicious activity.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā, soifua.